Another evening with lots to talk about here on Weather for Weather Geeks. This is the edition for Tuesday evening. It is the 20th day of January. Climatologically speaking, not only is January the coldest month of the year, but right around now, the 19th, 20th, 21st of January, that tends to be, climatologically speaking, our coldest, kind of stretch of the year. We've had some of our coldest weather on record during this kind of third week of January. Today was not a record by any stretch of the imagination, but it was the coldest morning of the season so far. We touched zero unofficially at a couple of our local thermometers. It was pretty common to see 1, 2, 3 degrees on a lot of car thermometers first thing this morning. That was only part of the story, of course. When you factored in the wind, it was a lot colder. Official lows at some regional airports today. 0 officially at the Youngstown Warren Airport. Over at Akron-Canton, or Canton-Akron, -1. The low this morning. New Philly at 3 and Pittsburgh at 3 for early morning lows today. But of course, the wind never was calm last night, and just enough of a breeze all night to create a wind chill into the mid-morning today. That was as cold as 15 below, 16 below, and we never cracked 0 officially at the airport with the wind chill today. We topped out at -2, -3, and that's kind of where we are this evening. The official numbers otherwise at the airport today, after a low of 0, it was 12 this afternoon. This was our coldest day in almost exactly a year. It was the 21st day of January back in 2025 that we had a day similar to today, but check out that record low. A lot of people remember this one. This was Reagan's second inaugural. It was moved indoors because it was so cold in Washington, D.C., and locally 20 below 0 on today's date back in 1985. I shared with you yesterday that January 19th is the coldest day on record. That was in 1994, but a close second place was January 20th, 1985. So cold, but hey, it could have been colder. At least the sun was out today. It was a bright blue sky for a lot of the afternoon today, and captured a time lapse from our Boardman camera looking to the southwest here over the Southern Park Mall complex. Sunset this evening right before 5:30. We continue to gain some daylight at the end of the day, but of course, January sunshine tends not to be all that effective. And when you look at the high-resolution satellite picture over the region captured this afternoon, all this white, not clouds of course, this is snow on the ground and ice on Lake Erie, which has expanded rapidly. A lot of our area rivers and streams and lakes have frozen over, and the ice will continue to thicken up over the next week to 10 days. But all this, of course, on the land, this is snow cover. And it's also going nowhere in a big hurry, although we'll see some melting and some compaction tomorrow, with temperatures trying to get a little above freezing in the afternoon. But on Lake Erie, now a lot of this is pretty tenuous, the central and eastern parts of the lake especially. But there is ice covering a majority of the lake right now. The Great Lakes system as a whole, up around 20% total ice coverage, but we're just getting started with a stretch in which we will see the ice expand a lot on the Great Lakes, taking us over the next 10 days or even close to 2 weeks. Now, will this shut down the lake effect machine? The answer to that is usually no. Even if the lake completely freezes over or gets completely covered by ice, that tends not to completely shut down the lake effect, because there's still some moisture flux that goes on. Some of that lake moisture still makes its way into the atmosphere, even if it's covered by ice, but it does greatly reduce the lake effect. It tends to anyway, when you have a lot of ice on Lake Erie, especially. That's the most important lake for us. Now, tomorrow morning, heading out the door, sorry kids and teachers, it's probably not school adjustment criteria for tomorrow morning, even though it's going to be cold outside. We're not going to see wind chills around -15 tomorrow morning. The wind chills will be mostly in the single digits above 0. The air temperatures mostly in the teens. We'll actually probably see our lows this evening. Temperatures will start to rise overnight as a warm front heads our way. Could be a couple of flakes overnight with that warm front, but that's going to be no big deal at all. Now, during the daylight hours tomorrow, right around midday, right in here, 11 o'clock, noon, 1 o'clock, I think there will be some snow showers around. We're going to be below freezing at this point, and I wouldn't be surprised if we had a few slick surfaces trying to develop, even though accumulations will probably be under an inch. Something to watch out for. I think we'll get into a lull for the lion's share of the afternoon. So we head towards evening, right around here, 8, 9, 10 o'clock. I could see where there's an uptick in snow showers again, maybe even a heavier squall in a couple of spots. And out of this activity, there might be a somewhat higher chance of seeing up to an inch or so, and maybe even a couple of inches in parts of the region. We'll be in between systems for a lot of the day Thursday, but here comes the mother load of cold. This air mass coming down Friday into the weekend will be even colder. than the one we've had overhead over the last 24 hours. So the midday snow tomorrow, probably, again, not accumulating much, but in total between midday tomorrow and then round 2 of the snow showers tomorrow evening, I could see where, especially in Mercer County, we try to pick up 2, 3, 4 inches. The National Weather Service in Pittsburgh actually hoisted a winter weather advisory for Mercer County and adjacent counties to the north, Crawford and Erie, and also to the east, out towards Venango County along Interstate 80. It's going to be possible to get a few inches worth of snow in total. I think for the majority of our viewing area, though, this is probably an inch or less in total, maybe a half an inch, 3/4 of an inch around midday tomorrow, and maybe another half an inch or so with the snow showers tomorrow evening. So just use a little caution if you'll be out and about. So, all right, let's talk about the weekend. Again, it's going to be very, very cold, and that's one of the ingredients for what's going to be a blockbuster winter storm for a lot of the eastern and even southern U.S. You've got a fresh batch of Arctic air descending out of Canada, very strong high pressure. That's going to be one of the ingredients. And, we're still only at Tuesday. We're still several days out from this. And so we're kind of in the phase of the game now where we're watching for trends, keeping an eye on all the modeling, seeing if there's model consensus starting to be formed or if the models are diverging. What are the trends? And starting tomorrow, I think we'll be able to get into a little bit more specifics as far as the timing. Maybe not snowfall totals just yet tomorrow, but at least with the timing and the potential impacts. We'll start to key in on those a little bit more tomorrow and certainly by Thursday. But we're still far enough out that it's mostly about the trends right now. And the trends today on the modeling going in a couple of directions. The chance of snow, I think, is going up. I think it's probably going to snow here out of this system late Saturday night and into Sunday. That being said, there hasn't been a pronounced north and westward trend on most of the modeling just yet to put us in kind of blockbuster territory or big quote unquote storm territory. Now, could this be enough to shovel and plow? Not going to be surprised by that. Will this be memorable or something like that? I don't think so. I think this could be a once in every couple or few years kind of a storm a few hours to our south and east. And it's been several years since some places have had as much snow as might be on the table with this system. So think of a place like Washington, D.C., Richmond, Virginia, Virginia Beach, Norfolk, down to Raleigh, back towards Nashville, kind of in this zone right here. There's going to be some places in here that haven't seen a storm like this in several winters. Confidence is really getting pretty high that this is going to be pretty impactful. And I think on the southern end of this could be a real big problem with ice, freezing rain and sleet in places like Charlotte, Atlanta, Birmingham, heading back towards Louisiana, Texas, parts of Arkansas as well. Now for us, I think, again, we're probably not in the sweet spot with this, but we could be close enough to the center of this system that we get enough to shovel and plow, and it could be disruptive, particularly during the daylight hours on Sunday. But it's certainly no slam dunk that that's the overall outcome. If I had to put odds on things at this point, I would say the strongest odds favor some snow, but not a ton. There are pretty low odds of no snow, I think, out of this. Also, the odds of some sort of 6+ inch, big time winter storm, I don't think the odds are very favorable for that at this point. I think there probably will be some snow, but it's a little bit more in the nuisance category. Nothing that we can't handle, but it's certainly maybe no fun if you need to be out and about on the roads, particularly during the daylight hours on Sunday. But again, today's only Tuesday. We got a lot to sort out. We're going to show you more model information and talk about the trends and everything else you need to know in future editions of Weather for Weather Geeks on all my social media, on the Storm Tracker 21 app, and of course on the newscast. Whether you watch us on old school cable or satellite, or you watch our streaming newscasts, we appreciate your viewership no matter how you watch us. So we are your place to head whenever the weather is super impactful and even moderately impactful, like we may have coming our way for the weekend in terms of snow. I think it'll be super impactful, certainly in terms of cold. We could be talking about, infrastructure issues with the cold. And what I mean by that is frozen pipes, cars having a hard time starting, especially if they're a little older or have an older battery. That's the kind of cold we may have coming our way for Friday night and parts of the weekend. So again, lots to talk about. We'll see you next time on Weather for Weather Geeks.